So I've had a few people ask me about the type of sewing machine that I use. So this isn't really a tutorial, it's more of a kind of a rundown of my sewing machine. So my sewing machine is a Nelco. I know Singer's the one that most people are familiar with. But this thing here is, well, I call it the Beast because it will sew through anything. It's a solid metal machine. So it will pretty much sew through anything that I put under it.
I'm actually not sure if they even make these anymore outside of commercial use.
But the nice thing about the solid metal machine is that it really does sew through anything that I can throw at it. This was actually my aunt's machine, and then she ended up getting a new one, I think, so she gave me this one, her old one, when I was like 15 or something, I think. So it was really nice because I'd been hand sewing previous to that, and the sewing machine made everything go so much faster. And then, you know, all the gears and everything are all in good shape, so I can just push that needle right through there with, and it goes right through no problem, and I can sew anything with this. I've done like 3-inch thick or 3-layer thick denim, hemp, duck cloth. I don't use real leather because I don't like the way that it's the way factory farmed animals are raised, so I don't use real leather. But if I did, this would be able to go through that no problem too. So yeah, this thing can sew through anything. This is a very simple machine. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles on it. You know, it's not one of those with the 300 built-in stitches and all that. But honestly, you really only need a few basic stitches to sew pretty much anything. So you can get by as long as you've got like a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. You can get by pretty well with just a basic sewing machine.
And since this is such a basic machine, there's no computer on it, so I never have to worry about the computer dying on it or anything, so it'll keep working for quite some time.
I don't have a lot of stitch length option like the number 7 here. That's a little more than an 1/8 inch stitch, I'd say, and then, you know, you can go all the way down here to pretty much nothing. But that's basically is the biggest stitch is about an 1/8 inch. And of course I have my zigzag. The biggest one, if I go to 5, that'll get me about a 1/4 inch stitch, so that's kind of a nice thing to have on here, but that's my fanciest stitch, is the zigzag stitch on this machine. I do of course have the bobbin winder, and then the buttonhole maker, and then just the usual, the tension dials, and, you know, dial to push down with the presser foot. I do have the option to do multiple stitch lines. I think I've only ever really used that once, so I usually just do single lines, and if I want another one I just go back over it, so I never really use that function. I don't really even have a lot of attachments on this. There's probably more that I could get, but again, I make everything that I make is pretty basic sewing. And you know, so you get the regular presser foot, and then the hemmer is about the only other one that I really use. Once in a while I'll use a ruffler, but it's very rare for me. So when I make ruffles, I usually just scrunch them up by hand and push them under the regular presser foot because I'm kind of a lazy seamstress and I don't like changing feet too many times. So that's my machine. I hope that answers the questions of everyone who wanted to know about my solid metal machine here. And like I say, this thing is an example of the fact that you really don't need a lot of fancy stitches to make yourself cool costumes. Basically, if you have a zigzag and a straight stitch, you can sew almost anything. Now, on the flip side, this is one, it no longer works. The motor is dead in it, but I would at some point really like to finish this. This is an old Singer machine. It's like a 1943 or somewhere in there, I think. I looked it up at one point. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's like a 43, 45, somewhere in there. And not only is this thing just gorgeous, but again, same thing. Solid metal machine, very heavy duty. This one actually does not even do a zigzag stitch. It's so basic that all it does is it sews straight seams, but it's got some pretty cool attachments. Again, it's got a really nice ruffler. I don't really use those that much except for on Renaissance costumes, but it's kind of nice to have. You can actually sew with this if you want to turn it by hand, but you know, it's kind of a pain. So at some point I'm gonna get this one fixed up, and then I'll be able to use this one, and maybe I'll just leave one with black thread and one with white thread, because then I can be an even more lazy seamstress and not have to change thread colors. But yeah, so this is definitely a cool machine that is on my list to fix up someday. Actually, my cousin found it in his barn, so it's an oldie but a goodie.